Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Growing Stronger Together. This is a podcast for people who care about children and families. And I'm your host, Kim Hale, and it's just a great privilege to be able to do this. And I love having people come in the studio and talk with me about usually literacy and children and families. So I'm in the Maypop Media studio, downtown Johnson City, on a very warm, humid, rainy summer afternoon. I didn't have an umbrella, so that was another, I've had a series of like incidents today that could have put me in a bad mood, but I'm still smiling. Maypop Media is owned and operated by Marissa and Mitch McGarry, and Mitch is here. He's our podcast engineer, and he's been fabulous to work with us. And Mitch, I appreciate you more than you will ever know. My guest today is a repeat guest. Heather Logan has been here, twice?
I think so.
At least twice.
Yes.
Yeah. So Heather is from the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation, which we call GELF, GELF. And we are really blessed in Tennessee in that, one, we have Dolly Parton, who started Imagination Library. And then we had a governor, was it Phil Bredesen, who decided to kind of link up, he did link up with Dolly Parton and the Imagination Library and really gets books into the hands of young children, birth to 5, in places in Tennessee. All you have to do is sign up.
Yes.
Once a month, free, right? And then we have GELF that like goes around and does so many things, which I mean, just talking to you before we started, you tell me things that I don't know, and I think I know everything about GELF, right? Heather, remind the audience and me. So your job, it's a regional, you drive a lot.
Yes.
Yes.
Regional program manager.
Okay. In the east part
Yes.
of Tennessee.
Yes, we serve all 95 counties in Tennessee. I have peers in West Tennessee and Middle Tennessee that serve those counties. Every county is served by a regional program manager with GELF.
And so always on the road, talking to people, working on getting books into hands of people. I always looking for funding opportunities and sources. Do you do some of that too? Building relationships?
Building relationships, absolutely. We have a development team, but if we build a relationship with somebody and think that it could be a good fit for GELF in general or a specific program, either Imagination Library or book buses, a storybook trail, then we make those connections.
You know, if I had millions of dollars, I would be a GELF person. Like I would give money to GELF, like a lot of money.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind if I get really wealthy.
Yes.
I'm knocking on my door.
Yes.
I would probably knock on your door first if I got a lot of money.
Okay, good.
Because I think it's so important for kids to have books.
Yes.
Yeah. Which we're talking about something today that you actually brought up, home libraries. And we haven't talked about that on this podcast at all. So you shared with me a document that I'm going to have Mitch put a link to that in the notes from Scholastics. But it's like a 2023 document that outlines all this research. Like I knew there was some, Heather, but this is a lot of research that has shown that when children have books in their home, their academic progress, their success is better, greater, however you want to say that, compared to children who don't have books in their home.
Exactly. And the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation really exists to strengthen early literacy in Tennessee in 2 specific ways. And one of those is home libraries. And it's so important. It's an entire bucket of what we do. And if you think about, you probably have books in your home.
Oh, yeah.
You're more likely to read.
Right.
So it just creates this culture of reading when books are present in the home.
Well, and I was at the grocery store earlier this week, and I had this thought because it's just me and my dog at home, right? My kids are grown, and I'm a widow. And I bought 1 bag of groceries at Kroger, $95. 1 bag. And as I was paying for that, I thought, how do families do this if they have maybe just 2 children, especially if one of them is an adolescent boy? who eats a lot. So for many families, I could see, especially now when things have gotten so expensive, that may not be on my priority list, right?
Right.
I also thought that when I was young, which was a long time ago,
Mm.
my mom bought little golden books at the
Mhm.
grocery store. I really don't see a lot of kids' books at the grocery stores anymore, right?
You're right.
So
Mhm.
where do families go that they, unless they're purposeful to go to Barnes and Noble, Books a Million? I mean, here in Johnson City, we have Mr. K's, which is a used bookstore, which
Right.
is great.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go to the library, but where do you buy kids' books?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a difficult decision that people have to make all the time. And you hear this great research and data about academic success is higher with you when you have books in the home. With 100 books in the home, which seems like quite a lot, but 100
Right.
books in the home, children are 214% more likely to achieve academic success. And then this one I had to write down because I forget it, but 500 books or more in the home is the equivalent of children spending 3 more years in school versus when you have only a few books in the home, then those children with 500 books are twice as likely to have the same amount of growth as a family with college educated parents versus not. And that's simply with having books in the home. So it increases the opportunity to read aloud and engage with books. But you mentioned Imagination Library. If children are enrolled in Imagination Library upon birth, that's 60 books.
60, like
60.
60.
Right. So from birth until the 5th birthday, that is 60 books. And some people say with Imagination Library, if they have 2 children, oh, I'm not going to enroll my second child because my first child got the books. The books are not the same every year. So you can still enroll the second child and then you have 120 book
Because
home library.
that child is also going to get books every month, right?
Exactly. So you're getting 60 books for child A, 60 books for child B.
And they're not the same book.
There might be some overlaps of favorites.
Right, but not
like
many.
Llama Llama Red Pajama, of course, but and the Little Engine that could, but they're not all going to be exactly the same. So there's 60 books from birth to the 5th birthday. And then I know on this podcast, I'm sure that Reach Out and Read has been discussed.
Yes.
So that's an opportunity to continue to build the home library. With Governor's Early Literacy Foundation, we are very fortunate to also be able to support every rising first, second, and third grader in a public school in Tennessee to receive a book pack of 6 books end of May, 1st of June. So there's an opportunity to receive 18 more books by the time you're in 3rd grade. And that then gets you even closer to this goal of 100 book home library. And I'm sure people, especially in Johnson City, we go around to parks and different spots and there are little free libraries.
I've seen those.
And we also have Appalachian Literacy Initiative in this area that serves.
I don't know about this one.
Okay. So Kimberly Baker is the brainchild behind this. And she's also an author. They serve Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, and some other Appalachian areas. And it's an opportunity for children in their school to choose books. They get choice from a set of options. And I think they get 4 a year.
Okay.
And Appalachian Literacy Initiative works to give the choices. So they make really solid decisions about what are appropriate choices. The children give their choices, and then Appalachian Literacy Initiative purchases the books and ships the books to the school.
Okay.
For those students. And it's more 4th, 5th grade heavy.
Okay.
So there's not a whole lot of overlap with what Governor's Early Literacy Foundation does. It's for a little bit older. And then, of course, there are book buses. We may have talked about that in the past. We're very lucky in Upper East Tennessee to have book buses that are operating right now. As you said, it's summer.
Right.
They're operating all throughout the summer, and most of them, 90% of them, are book gifting. They're not checking out books for circulation.
So they're traveling around like in neighborhoods, right?
They are.
Like I know in Johnson City, they have a bus that they've like retrofitted, like an old school bus that they don't use for children anymore. And they travel around. They have a schedule
Yes.
that they post, and the bus is at different neighborhoods at different times throughout the
Yes.
summer. And I distinctly remember Johnson City administrators telling me, you know, Kim, even when the bus is done and the kids are back in school, we still have parents and grandparents calling and saying, is the bus coming? Because they've enjoyed it.
Many of the buses have books for birth through adult on the bus. Everybody can take advantage of those books.
People love it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was young, the library had a bookmobile that would come out to where I lived, which was way out, you know, not in town or, and that's how I would check out books was the bookmobile. And then I knew in 2 weeks it would come back. So I had 2 weeks to read those books.
Right. We have one in Meigs County, which I think is still considered East Tennessee, but they operate that way.
Do they? Okay.
But then many of them operate as book gifting.
That's so neat. I love that. So that is a good way to build, like that's a lot of books.
It is a lot of books. And one of the, I guess, positives that you might say that came out of Hurricane Helene is this area got quite a few donations of books. And even this is a fun story. Last year in the fall, I went to the Literacy Association of Tennessee conference in Franklin, met a teacher in Hamlin County who then emailed me afterwards and said, hey, my 5th grade class wants to collect books for a storm impacted county. Do you have a connection for us? And I'm in close contact with all of our book bus operators, our Imagination Library volunteers in the area. So I knew who might benefit from that more than others. So connected her with the Carter County Book Bus representative so she could share what types of books and titles to collect. And I didn't count, but there were close to 200 brand new books that this class connected. And then I met the lady in Morristown and then delivered the books to Elizabethton. So that's just an example of the connection and the relationships. And we definitely got a lot of book donations for all of the book buses and different programs as a result of Helene.
I mean, that's amazing. Well, because that was like, I just can't even explain, right? Like that, I've been through hurricanes in my life, but the amount of water and the devastation has been, and I mean, you can still drive and see
it.
the damage. Like that's definitely we hope like a 1,000 year
definitely
doesn't happen again for 1,000 years. So, but I really hadn't thought about people losing books, but yeah, like
if you lost your home,
you lost
your home library,
and you're in that situation where I only have so much money. So what's going to be my priority? Like getting my house back together, finding a place to live, or spending money on books, right? So we're back to that, like, this is how we get into maybe not having books in the home because there are other priorities. That makes so much sense. I knew that there was research that's showing that correlation, but I didn't realize that it was 213%. Is that what you said?
214. 214% more likely to be proficient readers than those with less than 25 books.
Yes. Well, and you also pointed out to me earlier that having books in the home doesn't just make you more successful academically in reading, but in every subject.
Exactly.
So it's just having that exposure and valuing reading and reading.
Yes.
Right. Also in this Scholastic report, I read about the summer slump. And I'm not sure people know what that is. I was surprised, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this report said that by the time a person is 18 and they've been in public school, they really have only spent 18% of their life in school, right? So you think about that, all of the time that you have every day and up to the time you're 18, 18% of it, that's all that you've spent in school, right? So summer slump is when, like now, kids have been out of school for a month here, right? And if they're not reading, and if no one's reading to them, then their reading skills regress and slide backward. So when they show up for school around here, it's the beginning of August, they're not at the same place they were when they left in May.
Right.
And so having books at home and using them, reading them, talking about them, helps prevent that summer slump. And if you don't have books in your home, that's harder to do, right?
Right. I mean, you're obviously not going to read if you don't have the books in the home. So it's creating this home literacy environment. And that information that you just shared about how much time children are not in school, that blew me away because I feel as if children are in school
all the time.
Yes. And I listened to the webinar that's associated with this document, this research paper that you read, and she really talked about that. And I thought, I had never really thought about that, of how much time children are not in school. And it makes that home environment so much more important. And she talks about how these home libraries, to your point of, do I choose books or food, that really books are a necessity. It shouldn't be a privilege. It shouldn't be something extra. That books really are a necessity and leads to not only the academic success that you mentioned, but social emotional health, and leads to higher economic success later in life, which those things make them a necessity.
Yes, that's a good point. I also thought when I read that about they only spend 18% of their total life up to 18 in school. Heather, when I was a school psychologist, and that was in Southwestern Virginia, I distinctly remember going into schools. Many of them were rural. A couple of them were inner city, and the library in the school had very few books. Like there were shelves, but there might have only been like 10 or 12 books. And then you had this big shelf that was empty. And the first time I went in, I remember asking the librarian, like, are you all like reorganizing? Because it didn't look like any library that I had ever been in before. So that's when I realized that it's also not just home libraries that we have to worry about, but sometimes schools struggle to have the books.
They do. And this research talks about the trifecta of libraries being children's homes, children's classrooms, and children's libraries, whether that's the library in the school or the public library. And having the same books in all three places increases the likelihood that the children are going to read the books. So it's affirmation and confirmation that, yeah, this is a good book.
Yeah.
I have this book in my house, and so do you, and so do you, and my teacher has this book, so I'm more likely to read it. So it's, yes, not only building the home library, but building the libraries in our communities and in our schools, so we have this trifecta of having the same books there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And also I know for kids that struggle with reading, and reading's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. But the more that they practice reading, well, that's true for everybody, you get better at it. But for kids that struggle, they need that repetition of like, build my confidence and I'm going to read this. And then, oh gosh, I can go home and read it to mom and dad again because I practiced it at school, right? Or I've checked this out from the library and my teacher has it. And so I'm going to be really good at reading this book.
And if we want them to practice, it needs to be interesting to them.
So let's talk about that because I confided to you that, and I've said this on this podcast before, that I have two children, and my son, who's the oldest, I went to school to be a teacher, so I wanted to read, like stories, like fiction, probably fairy tales, that kind of thing. And he was not the least bit interested. And he wanted to read about gears and motors and how things worked. And I can remember at night when I would lay down to read to him, because we did that every night, I would argue with him and say, "Oh, Andrew, I don't want to read that tonight." And he would say, "But Mom, I want to learn about this motor." But Drew, I don't want to. But he was pretty like, this is what I want to do. So I did it. But now, like you're telling me, it's so important for them, right? To have a choice.
Right.
Now I feel terrible. And I mean, I was a teacher. Like, I went to school to be a teacher, but I still, just in my own, what I like to read, right?
Right.
Because laying down with them at night to go to bed to read a book was just as much of a treat for me as it was for them, mostly because I could be horizontal and still be doing something after, work and dinner and baths and homework. But you're telling me that they need to make the choice.
There's a lot of things that might make a quality home library, and both of what you're talking about, the fairy tales and the books on the motors, are going to make a quality home library. But letting the child have choice, of course, they're going to practice more. They're going to be more interested in reading the book.
Right.
And if it's only full of things that we choose, then where's the ability to have perspective of another? So diversity in fiction, nonfiction, who you see in the book, where they are. Here we might want to have some books that are set in Texas or California or New York City. So it's a learning opportunity to see how others live as well. And we might want to have some that are a little challenging and some that are not as challenging. So that does build that confidence. So different levels, and even teachers and librarians, the library should be full of all different kinds of books.
Right.
And then if the teacher doesn't have high quality learning materials and high quality books, then that's going to make a difference as well. That was another little statistic that we read, is that when teachers have high quality materials, they're 10 to 15% more likely, the children in that classroom, to have an increase in reading scores.
Yeah. And had I ever thought about that? No. But that makes so much sense when you really think about the interest of kids reading, right? And getting them to do it. Yes, it seems so easy, like common sense, but then when you really think about it, you're like, there's really a lot to this, right? It's not just like, oh, I bought some books and here's my library.
Absolutely. But one of the things too that you can pat yourself on the back for is when you were in the bed reading about motors, much to maybe
yes,
that you didn't want to do that.
I didn't want to do.
You were building relationship.
Yes.
And that's also one of the things that comes out of having this home library, is there's opportunity to read together, to do this shared activity that not only leads to academic success, but builds relationships, which is super healthy.
Yeah, that's true. And I remember telling my kids, we need to get this done because we want to have time to read. You wanted to read that chapter, or and they were like, oh yeah, that's right, Mom. And so it was something that we looked forward to. And I remember when my son got to maybe 4th grade, he just was like, now Mom, listen, we've been doing this together, but like, I'm going to read about myself. But we still talked about it. And then the Harry Potter stuff that came out, and we did a little bit of that together. But I was so disappointed when he read it on his own, and I, I'm like, what? You already read that chapter? What? I'm behind. So there is a lot of truth to that. Yeah. Yeah. But you have to, it has to become part of your routine.
Yes.
But if you don't have books in your home, then it's not part of your routine.
It is not going to be part of your routine.
Right. Well, and we were talking about Scholastic earlier, and Scholastic is the company that pulled together all this research, and it's a lot. Easy to read, though. You mentioned to me that the Governor's Early Learning Foundation, Literacy Foundation, bilingual, or is it Dolly Parton?
The Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, all 60 books in Tennessee, can be received in a bilingual format.
I had no idea.
Yep, it's about a year old. They rolled it out last summer, and we're still working to raise awareness and socialize that with our partners and with families. So if you have a 2-year-old that you would like the books to now come in a bilingual format, English and Spanish, you can make that switch to make that happen. And you can always reach out to me if you're not sure how to do that, but we can help you with that. And then when babies are being enrolled from the beginning, they can get all 60 books in a bilingual format.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about that limitation. Let's I'm a parent, and my first language is Spanish, and my child is going to school to read, and they're reading in English, and then our time reading together, I may struggle, right? Because we know that you can speak fluently in a language, but not always be as fluent as a reader or comprehending it. That takes longer. So that's a whole nother wrinkle in this home library thing, right?
It is. And research actually tells us that families continuing to read in their home language is just going to strengthen their ability to read and communicate in English. So sometimes parents who may speak another language may feel like they shouldn't use that as their first language at home, but that's not the case because it's about language.
Yes. And we're finding out now, there's research coming out that suggests if you are bilingual, you are less likely to develop dementia.
Oh, interesting. I can see that. Yeah, because you have to use your brain so much.
You have to use your brain so much. Yeah. So I'm thinking, I took Spanish in high school a long time ago. So I'm thinking, I need to do one of those programs and get back to Spanish, or do a full immersion. Like that'd be a great.
That would be a better reason to.
I'm going to go for 6 months and live in, right, and just figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. If I were a parent of a young child birth to 5, I would absolutely get the bilingual version.
Yeah, that is so good. I don't know who thought about that, but that was brilliant.
Right. Well, Dollywood, they piloted it first. It's been rolled out in California for a couple of years, and then last year added 5 more states.
Okay.
And not sure what's next, but it's here in Tennessee, which is good. Important for us.
Yes. Yes. And we do in Tennessee have a lot of agriculture, especially even in our of East Tennessee. So we have historically had migrant workers and families that have stayed in the United States. And so we have a significant number of families who are Spanish speaking as their first language. So that makes so much sense.
It does. And I know we probably have listeners in Virginia and North Carolina. I believe the North Carolina books can also, I believe that's one of the states that are using the bilingual format right now.
Okay.
I don't think Virginia is, but
maybe that's coming.
Maybe coming.
Something for people to push for, right? Okay, so summer slide we talked about. We talked about the impact. The number of books really matters. Children having a choice. And not that they should be the end all be all, right? But don't be like me and just tell your son, well, you've got to read this fairy tale because that's what I like. If he listens to this podcast, he's going to laugh because he's very mechanical and a welder. So it totally makes sense.
Right.
But, when he was in 1st or 2nd grade, I wasn't thinking that he was going to be a welder. I was just wanting to read what I wanted to read. like all parents, I guess. And then look for book gifting. So little libraries, I've seen so many of those around Johnson City just in the last couple of weeks. My daughter is looking for a house. And so I've been going with her to look at homes. And in so many neighborhoods, there's the little lending library. And there's one in my neighborhood, but I didn't realize how prevalent they were.
Yeah, it's exciting to see them around, and that people, just neighborhood people, not even organizations like United Ways or GELF, but people in the community want to make sure that they're stocked with books.
Yes, and all of them had books in them, right? And in my neighborhood, it's by the mailboxes, right? So I see the families coming to get their mail, and kids will have books that they'll put in and then they'll take them out. So it's really working. I have seen at times a lending library that's empty,
Right.
right? That there's
Mhm.
nothing happening. But this has not been the case of the ones I've seen in the past few weeks. And that was encouraging. I
It
was
is.
like, wow, that
Mhm.
people are really doing this. But makes total sense, right? That after you read a book that have somebody else read it and
Yeah.
just pass it around.
hmm
Yeah. I didn't know about Appalachian
Literacy Initiative. ALI.
and you just get through that online.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put these things in the notes for
Okay.
people to be able to access. We mentioned Reach Out and Read. I just had a ETSU pediatric resident, Joe Wilson, came on and talked about Reach Out and Read from his perspective. So if you live in our area of Johnson City, we have we have two practices in Johnson City, I think, that they give out a book at well child visits to children, which is great because that adds to, I think there are 10 well child visits between 6 months and the age of 5. So that's another 10 books, right? So families could get to 100.
They can,
Yes.
yes, they can
Yes.
absolutely get to
Yes.
100. It's
Yes.
awareness, right?
Yes. And then the books that you were talking about that go, that are mailed to rising first graders, rising second, rising third in Tennessee,
Yes,
those come to their house.
they do.
It's a package of 6.
Yes.
And then are there activities that go with
Yes,
those?
good question.
Okay.
There are what we call think sheets, and these are meant for children and their caregiver to do together, either during or after they've read the book. Just some engagement that's developmentally appropriate with the books. There are also some reading tips for caregivers in there that might tell them, okay, well, before you read the book, here are some things that you could do. You could look at the cover, you could talk about the author. Here are some things you could do during the book and after reading the book. So
good.
it gives them tips like that too.
That's really good. So if you don't feel comfortable as a parent, like you're not quite sure, that really gives you some ideas of things
Yes.
that you can do.
Right. Some easy to implement things to do with the books. These arrived to children end of May, 1st of June, because they were originally and still are meant to address that summer slide that you mentioned.
That makes sense.
So that's why they come when they do. And our mascot, this is really important for people because sometimes they get these book packs and they don't know who they came from. They don't know, oh, who sent me these books?
Okay.
So our mascot is an owl, and maybe we can link that somewhere. His name is Booker.
Okay.
And anything that's branded Governor's Early Literacy Foundation is going to have Booker on it. So children are starting to become familiar with Booker, and we'll hold him up and say, oh yeah, I have a bookmark with him on it, or oh yeah, I did get those books from Booker. So that's an easy way. Governor's Early Literacy Foundation is a mouthful, but Booker the Owl is a little bit easier.
They remember that.
Yes.
Right. And I've seen Booker at places, right?
Yes.
Like that was very clever actually to have an owl, which always symbolizes a school and wisdom. And then to name him Booker. That was
Yes, his name is
brilliant.
Booker. I don't know who named him.
That's pretty
I'll
good.
have to ask.
So the books that like the first grader gets different than what the second grader gets.
Yes, and they're different every year as well.
Different every year. So if you have 3 children in your home and they're first, second, you're going to get this many books and they're all going to be different.
They are different. And these books are chosen by an educator advisory council from across the state.
Okay.
And they look at matching the books with curriculum and standards, and they go through a whole process every year to do this. So they do change.
That was the other thing that I thought about, wondering if families realize that there are standards. I know we talk about that in school a lot. Like the state of Tennessee has decided that in first grade, these are the standards. These are things that we as a state and educators have decided this is what first graders need to know, right? I think parents don't realize that Tennessee also has a set of early learning standards, and those are called Tennessee Early Learning Development Standards.
Developmental.
Developmental standards. And so often you will hear early childhood folks say 10 L's, like 10 L's. And I used to think, because I'm from Virginia, like, what are you talking about when you want me to look at the 10 L's? Well, it's the
Yeah.
T, right?
Mhm.
And then the ELDS,
Yeah.
the initials of. So Tennessee has that for birth to 4,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then we have for the 4-year-olds getting ready to go into kindergarten.
Mhm.
And so a lot of what you do in Guelph really aligns with those things that you're expecting, right?
They do. I just went and participated this week in a day of a preschool literacy training, and they specifically had noted some of those 10 L's and how they align with the kindergarten standards. So it would look at being able to repeat back details of a story, for example, and it would show the standard for pre-K and then what the next step is in kindergarten. Well, how do you learn to retell details of a story without reading stories
Yeah.
and without having those books in the
Yes.
home?
Yes. And then if parents have those think sheets
Mm-hmm.
that helps them ask questions, or maybe you finish the book and the next day you bring it up
Mm-hmm.
to see if they remember and talk about it. Those are all helping those brains learn to make connections,
Mm-hmm.
right? Learning new words, learning new information, which just makes it easier than when you go back to school and you learn even more, right?
Right.
Just starts you out learning.
Mm-hmm.
It makes so much sense, but it's really not that easy, right?
I know. If it were, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I know.
But, right. And it's not just about being able to say CAT, cat. It's also about comprehension. Well, did you understand what you read?
Mhm.
And did you understand what the conversation was between the two people in the story? So there are many more pieces to it than
Yes. Can you
we
make
might realize.
inferences, and can you
Mhm.
predict what's going to happen next? And
Mhm.
really having children think about possibilities and
Mhm.
problem solving. And
Mhm.
yeah, humans are so smart. We really are. Like, little kids are really smart. But I continue every time we talk. I have to tell you, I have this vision in my head of you in a car full of books driving down the highway, because physically delivering books can be physically hard, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's heavy, putting books in your car and carrying them in. But what a great thing you do.
Right. And sometimes that is exactly what we're doing. Sometimes we are the connector.
Mhm.
Sometimes we are making sure that people have the funding, the resources, the tools that they need. But yeah, sometimes I have a car full of books.
Mhm. I could just see a caricature of you driving the car, and like books, opened and the wind's blowing. And
We'll have to get somebody to
you should put that on your business card.
paint that or draw
Yes,
that.
you could have that little drawing of I work for Guelph, and
Yes.
this is what I do.
Mhm. Yeah.
And thank you for doing that, Heather. It's so important.
It's a lot of fun. I was with some children this week and trying to explain what I do. And I said, I basically make sure that children have the books that they need in their home. How much better
I
can things be
mean,
than that?
that's the
Yeah.
best. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the best thing
Mhm.
ever. So for those of you listening, Heather's given us lots of tips. I'm going to put a lot of information in the notes that Mitch will add when he posts this conversation. The goal is to have books at home for your child.
Mhm.
A bilingual would be great if you need that, or even if you're just interested in your children knowing a little Spanish, knowing something else. I didn't realize how many book giving organizations there are. And, have a goal and try to get to that point. And certainly take advantage of Guelph. If you got those books in the mail, make sure you're using them and realize Booker sent them. Does Booker make visits to schools? Does he have time to do that?
He can. Now, he lives in Nashville, but so it takes some planning. But yes, he can visit.
What a cool idea for him to be at schools. That would be, I
Yep.
think he should team up with Bucky, the ETSU.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Right.
If somebody has an idea about that, they can feel free to contact me.
Well,
Look at Booker's schedule.
I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there
Yeah.
that ETSU plays Mercer University, and they are the Bears. And so in the past, many years ago, we had book drives that we were going to book the Bears.
Oh, okay.
And in order to get into the basketball game, you could bring a new book and not have to buy a ticket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I bet Booker and Bucky might want to book the Bears. I might have to pursue that.
Listen to all that alliteration.
I know, right? Kids would love that. Thank you for being here. It's
Thank
always
you.
delightful to see you, and thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing this knowledge with me. It's been a long time since I've really dived into what research has said about how important it is to have books. It really, really is. So families, try to make that your goal, and help your child succeed and build those relationships and enjoy so much. Thank you to Ballad Health for supporting us and having this podcast and having us here in Mitch's great studio. For those of you that are loyal listeners, thank you for that. And look for us next time. We'll have more episodes of Growing Stronger Together. Thank you.